spider came, spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
I admire your taste. What am I doing here?
Well, these are 7,000 of your personal friends.
That's all?
And I think that a few of them, we're going to ask you some questions, unless there's anything you wanted to talk about.
You know, that's always a nightmare. I always think, what if somebody asks me a question and I don't know the answer? So what I want you to do, because you're the guy who'll pick the people, pick ones who look like they have easy questions. If you have a tough question, go on someone else's paddle. By the way, since I don't hear as well as I used to, I sometimes have trouble making the question out. My good friend Jarrett here is going to repeat it to me. Now that'll be boring as hell for you, but be tolerant. I went to all the trouble to travel here for you. It's the least you can do to put up with that, okay? Now take it away, Jarrett.
All right, now if we can get some house lights or something and get these bright ones turned down, because I cannot see the audience and that's really going to bum this out. Is there any way we can swap the lighting arrangement at all?
If it gets lighter and I see one empty seat in this audience, I'm leaving.
Can't? All right. So, does anyone have a question? You need to get in line at the microphone. I thought I explained
No questions,
this already.
okay. Hey, it was nice seeing you.
So I'm an alternate. We're going to start over here. Go ahead and give me your question, sir.
Stan, I know that you're the father of Marvel Comics, and I know this may be a taboo question, but I'm just curious, what is your favorite DC Universe hero and villain?
I'll be honest with you. I don't really read the DC books. But I will do my best to answer. The only character I have read in DC that I thought was kind of funny and original in a long time, oh my God, I forgot his name. Lobo, yeah, do you know Lobo? I thought that was, I love him because he's so horrible. You know, I kind of wish I had invented him. But I mean, Superman, you know, he's Superman, Batman, the Flash, the Lantern, I don't know. Look, let me ask you a question. Superman flies, right? Yeah. What is his method of propulsion? All he does, he goes like this. And he's flying. Now, why didn't I fly when I went like that? The whole idea of Superman was supposed to be he came from another planet where the gravity is much heavier. So when he comes here, it's so easy for him to jump over a building and so forth and run fast. Nowhere does it say he's able to fly like a goddamn comet. So I want an explanation, or I'm not leaving till I get one. See, we're more scientific at Marvel. When I want Thor to fly, he has his hammer with the little thing wrapped around his wrist. He swings the hammer, lets it go. He's tied to it, so the hammer takes him with it. Perfectly sound scientific way. That'll teach you to ask those kind of questions.
We're going to go over here to the left side of the room. Go ahead, sir.
Stan, so good to have you. For myself and a million other people. I'm not here to ask a question, I'm here to thank you. I appreciate your imagination, what you've given us all. Thank you so much.
I didn't hear all of that, but what I heard sounded wonderful and I appreciate it. Thank you. And very true.
So humble. Yes, over here.
Hi, so you've done a bunch of cameos in like all the, the Marvel movies. What is your favorite?
You know, I think my hearing is coming back to me. I heard that. My favorite cameo in the Marvel movies? I'm not good at favorites. You know, I tend to love them all. I thought the one where they wouldn't let me into the wedding of Reed and Sue was kind of funny. I like the one in Spider-Man where I was listening to music while Spidey was fighting the lizard. And if I keep thinking, I'll say I also like this one and this one. I like them all. I am my biggest fan. I gotta
All right, over here.
Stan, thank you for being here. 50 years ago, you created the X-Men. Amazing. This week, we got a new X-Men #1 with an all-female team. I'm just curious to know your thoughts on an all-female X-Men team.
I missed the end of that.
So how do you feel about an all-female X-Men team that just started out?
I think it's fine, but I can't call it X-Men. They gotta call it X-Women. And that'll look funny on the masthead. But hey, that's up to them. No, I think it's a great idea. Anything that's new and different. You know, I don't know if you're aware of this, although I'm sure you are. The toughest thing is taking these characters that have been around so long and keeping them interesting for the readers all the time. You've got to come up with new angles, with new approaches, with new surprises to keep the readers hooked, or else after a while, I've read that kind of story before, I've had it. So anything they do that's different like that is good as long as they do it well. But luckily, it's Marvel. They do everything well.
All right, right over here, please.
When you created, Spider-Man, like, how did you, what inspired you to create Spider-Man?
I'm gonna leave that one to you.
When you Testing. When you created Spider-Man, what initially inspired you to create him?
Greed, hunger, having to pay the rent. No, actually, I had done a few other superheroes, and my publisher said, hey, we're on a roll, let's do another one. So I tried to think of another, and as you know, with superheroes, the most important thing is, what superpower will you give them? So the first thing I always think of with a superhero is, what superpower do I want the character to have? And I saw a fly crawling on a wall. Yeah, I told this story so often, for all I know, it might even be true. I saw a fly crawling on a wall, and I said, gee, wouldn't it be cool to have a character? No, I'm lying to you. When I did Spider-Man, the word cool wasn't in existence. I probably said, wouldn't it be groovy to have a character who could crawl on walls? And that's how it happened. Then I began to think, what'll I call him? Mosquito Man? Nah. Insect Man? Nah. I went down the list and I got to Spider-Man. I mean, what could sound better? Spider-Man. Ooh, I'm getting all excited just saying it. Did I answer the question?
Yes, sir.
I never know, because I forget. I forgot what the question was. I forgot what I'm doing here.
You did fabulous.
Fabulously, it's an adverb.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Hi, Stan. If and when Marvel gets Spider-Man's film rights back, I'm keeping up hope. How do you think he'd be able to fit into the cinematic universe and be an Avenger?
If Spider-Man,
If Marvel got his film rights back from Sony.
if Marvel gets the film rights to Spider-Man back, how would he fit in with the Avengers?
Oh, they'd find a way to do it if they want to. You know, the nice thing about writing about fictitious characters, you can do anything. If they get the rights back to Spider-Man, and if they want him to be in the Avengers, there's 100 ways. In fact, I even wrote a story years ago, don't remember exactly, but where Spider-Man wanted to join the Fantastic Four. And he went to them, and I forget what happened. Obviously a great story. No, they could have any reason why Spider-Man wants to join the Avengers, or why the Avengers contact him and they want him to join if they can find him. And in fact, I would love to work on a movie like that. It's not a bad idea. Let's get Spider-Man into the Avengers. Wow. I'll probably have to give him a royalty.
Over here, please.
Stan, this is a great honor. Welcome to Philadelphia.
Great being here.
You've always said very flattering things about the great artists that illustrated the Marvel books that you scripted in the 60s. And I always wondered if you remember, Steve Ditko's departure from Spider-Man was very famous in the 60s. And I always wondered if you remember the last conversation you had with him and what the nature of that conversation was.
Yeah. He said, I quit. Or something like that. And I said, why? And he never really told me. He never really told me why he quit. One day he just up and quit. He quit Doctor Strange and he quit Spider-Man. And it's a shame because he's an incredibly talented guy. He did a wonderful Spider-Man. Luckily, we had John Romita and other people and we were able to carry on, but I, honest to God, to this day, do not know why he quit. I'm sorry, I can't even make it sound funny, but that's just the way it is.
So I too would like to thank you for helping me shape my childhood imagination, creating the Hulk, Spider-Man, Thor. But what I wanted to ask you today is some of your secondary characters. Where did you find inspiration for them, such as Rick Jones, one of my personal favorites?
Where did you find the inspiration for some of your secondary characters like Rick Jones and some of the B-rolls?
I never considered any character that I wrote as a secondary character. Thank you very much. But you need people for your characters to talk to. And it occurred to me that Bruce Banner needed somebody to talk to, and I thought it would be kind of fun to have this teenage kid, Rick Jones. And although we kind of lost him pretty soon, he didn't hang around too long, did he? I don't know. What was the question? Something about secondary characters?
What inspires you for those next level of characters?
I don't know it's inspiration. I think it's just when you say to yourself, I think this script needs some more characters, and you put them, like for example, with Iron Man. I had Tony Stark, who was rich and famous and an inventor, and he made himself an iron suit, but he needed people to talk to. And I thought it would be fun if he had a bodyguard, because he's a billionaire, what was his name, Happy Hogan, something like that, yeah. And I thought, that guy is his bodyguard, but nobody knows that he's Iron Man. He could be anybody's bodyguard. And then I wanted him to have a love interest, so I thought it'd be good to have a secretary, and I called her Pepper Potts. I think that was the name I gave. I gave everybody the same first letter as last letter, when I could think of it, because it made it easy for me. If I forgot one name, the other name gave me a clue what the name again. And again, I forgot the question, but you always need other characters for your characters to talk to, so you put them in when you can. Like my most famous one, Willie Lumpkin, the postman in Fantastic Four. Who would the Fantastic Four talk to when somebody was delivering the mail if they didn't have Willie Lumpkin there? I mean, it's so obvious.
Sir.
As the king of fictional superheroes, who is a real-life superhero to you?
Who is a real-life superhero to me? Well, that's a good question. I never really thought about it. You know what? Can I come back next year and answer that? I don't know. I don't have that. It used to be when I was very young, we had a president called Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was my hero. We haven't had too many presidents that I felt that way about ever since. And I'm trying to think. There are war heroes. There are guys I knew in the Army, but you don't know them. It wouldn't mean anything to mention their name. My best friend, who's an artist, Ken Bald, he used to draw the strip Dark Shadows, and he did some things for me years ago. He was a Marine captain. I'm very proud of him. I don't really have, I guess, any real life heroes. I can't think of any offhand. Me, yeah, I'm my biggest hero.
Yes.
I forget
What is your name?
Matilda.
Matilda, how old are you, Matilda?
9.
Have you figured out your question yet?
Yes. Do you really like those glasses?
She started out by saying you're a very handsome man.
Well, that's so obvious.
And do you really like your glasses?
No. This is not funny. I had a cataract operation about a month ago, and I see worse after the operation than I saw before. And these glasses don't do a damn bit of good. I see as well without them. But my wife said you gotta wear them because everybody expects you to be wearing glasses. So that's why I'm wearing them. And I'm gonna go see my eye doctor when I get back and give him help.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Stan, if you could be any one of your characters, have their superpowers, which one would it be?
Tony Stark. I mean, he's so rich and he's so smart and he's so handsome and the women love him, and so he's got a bad heart. Nobody's perfect.
All right, over here.
Hey, my name is Daniel Madison. I had just asked Stanley a question about, it's not about comics, it's about manga. Do you have many more mangas just like this one?
Do you do many manga?
Manga.
That's a Japanese comic.
Wow.
I have one.
Are you going to be doing any more? Are you going to do any more?
Oh, am I going to do any more?
Yeah, can you do any more?
I have no plans to do any now. Right now, instead of Japanese manga, I'm working with the Chinese. We're doing a movie called, what the hell is it called? Yeah, thank you. Called The Annihilator, my newest superhero. And we're doing it in partnership with a Japanese production company. I'm sorry, a Chinese production company. It'll probably be out in a couple of years. You gotta watch it. And it's not just a Chinese movie, it's for the whole world. But we're gonna have a Chinese actor play the star. And it's gonna be something very different. And that has nothing to do with manga, I'm sorry.
I thought you created a manga for that manga showing Jump has.
What was that thing?
I didn't even get that.
I said showing Jump, so.
Jump?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a book, so I read it every day, so.
Yeah, so I don't think he's going to be creating any more in the near future.
Glad you're having a private conversation. I don't know what they're talking about.
All right, over here.
Hello, Stan. My name is Mark. First, I have to say thank you for bringing us Marvel books. And my favorite character is Spider-Man. What is your thought about them killing Peter Parker and replacing him with Dr. Octopus?
What's your thought of them killing Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and replacing him with Dr. Octopus?
I think it's a very nervy thing to do. But again, like I told you, they keep trying to think of things that'll surprise the readers, things the readers haven't read before, to keep you hooked, to keep you interested, and it'll work out. I would not be surprised if Peter Parker doesn't come back again as Peter Parker Spider-Man, but you'll have to go through the whole process and keep buying the books while you do, please.
Thank you. I wish I could bring you back. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Hi, Stan.
Hi.
Is there any character that you've created that you personally identify with most?
Is there any
characters you've created that you personally identify with?
No, not really. Maybe the Thing, because he's so strong and everybody loves him, but no, not really. I'm really willing to admit they're all fictitious characters, and no.
All right, over here.
Hi, Stan. My name is Vincent Ruiz. I'm actually the gentleman you saw in the escalator this morning who said hi to you. Maybe you
Something escalated?
Okay, listen. Two things. First of all, I just want to tell you, God bless you and thank you for your service. I was in the Army also. My question being, in the kind of the same vein, when you did X-Men, did you feel like you were going to be, because during that time it was very tumultuous because of racial turmoil and a lot of other things, Did you feel, what was your mindset when you did it, and were you ever ostracized? Because X-Men was a very controversial comic book. Extremely.
X-Men was controversial?
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that.
Folks, I have to repeat everything y'all say. Short questions, small brain. First, he would like to thank you. He's from the Army. He'd like to thank you for your service.
You are welcome. The entire nation is welcome. Thank you.
And what was the rest?
And the X-Men being written in the time when it was during...
Got it.
You understand? During the whole civil...
Thank you.
Okay. You
So,
understand?
when you were writing the X-Men, was it intentional to have as much of an impact in the civil rights movement and with civil liberties as it did?
Absolutely. I wanted to show that for some reason, there seems to be a trait in human nature that people dislike and usually distrust people who seem different than they are for any reason. And I was trying to show how ridiculous that trait is, and it's a bad thing, and we should try to wipe it out. We should all learn to live with people who are different and respect them as much as we respect people who are just like us. So that was the underlying theme, and I'm happy to say that some people caught it. Some people it was over their head, but they still enjoyed the stories, and that made me happy. But yes, the X-Men was one book where I was trying to get an anti-bigotry theme in it, and I am glad some people caught it.
Thank you.
Hey Stan, can you give us some examples of some characters that you created that were refused by the editors because they were too out there, too silly, too bizarre, whatever?
So, do you recall any characters you created that didn't quite cut the mustard?
No. Strangely enough, everything we did worked out. And in a strange... You were talking about the X-Men. When I suggested... You see, my publisher had to okay everything I came up with. So I came to him. I originally wanted to call them the Mutants. And he said, that's a terrible name for a comic. He said, he didn't have much respect for the intelligence of his readers. He said, none of our readers are going to know what a mutant is. So I thought the leader was Professor X, and they had extra powers. I said, okay, I'll call them the X-Men. And he said, oh, that's a good name. And as I walked out of his office, I thought, if nobody will know what a mutant is, how will anybody know what an X-Man is? But somehow I had the thing, and that's the way it was. And I hope that answered the question, because I forgot what the question was.
Characters that you created that didn't work out, but obviously you did answer the
No,
question.
they all pretty much worked out. We were lucky. Before we did superheroes, we did stories like the Archie magazines. We had Millie the model and Nellie the nurse and Hetty of Hollywood, and they all sold well. We had war magazines, and they all sold well. We had westerns. My publisher loved the name, for some reason, Kid, in the Western. So we had the Texas Kid, the Two-Gun Kid, the Outlaw Kid, and they all sold well. So, I don't know, we were riding on some sort of a lucky pony, and I can't think of anything we did that really wasn't okay. That's the only reason I kept my job, because believe me, if any of them didn't sell, I'd have been the hell out of it.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Stan. I just wanted to know if there were any characters you ever created that maybe you kind of, in retrospect, regret creating.
Do you regret creating any particular character?
Hell no. No, why would I?
Maybe they got away from you.
What?
Said maybe they just got away from you, it took a life of its own?
Oh, they always take a life of their own. Even when I was writing them, You start off creating a character, and after the first year or the second year or the fifth year, you've suddenly got it's all a little different. With Spider-Man, when I started the Spider-Man strip, I had no idea that I would end up killing Captain Stacy. Or was it Gwen Stacy? Who came first? I forget. Whichever one was killed first, I killed. And Gwen, I think, was killed after the captain, and Jerry Conway did that, and I hate him for that. And, no, did they get away from me? Was that the question?
Yes.
They get a life of their own. It really is truths. Things happen in the strips as they go on that you never expect to happen when you start the strip, because not only do you want to surprise the reader and keep the reader's interest up, but believe it or not, you as the writer want to keep yourself interested. I couldn't have been interested in these characters if their lives never changed in any way, if they always stayed exactly the same. So every writer of a series keeps trying to add new elements that will surprise you and would have surprised him, except for the fact that he knows they're coming because he wrote them. Am I confusing everybody? Confusing myself.
I love working with him. Next question.
Hi, Stan. I was just wondering, how involved are you with today's Spider-Man comics in the newspaper?
I was writing it for a long time, until very recently, and I've had to take time off from writing it because I've been too busy with other things. And I have a few other people who are writing it now. I'll probably get back to it later if I ever get any more spare time. But unfortunately, papers keep dropping all the time, and pretty soon the strip will just be on your internet. In fact, most strips will be on the internet. The papers keep losing comics and features. I don't know how long newspapers will be around, frankly. Even the magazines, Newsweek, which was one of the biggest news magazines, isn't published anymore. You've got to get it on the internet. And that's too serious a subject for me to discuss.
Right there.
Hey, I was wondering if you have any particular favorite characters that maybe never got as popular amongst the readers as you loved yourself.
No, not really. We were very lucky. Most of the ones we introduced did become popular. Maybe the only exception is Colonel Fury, the agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. The S.H.I.E.L.D. books did well. I brought them out because I wanted to get something like, in the beginning there was a TV show called The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I wanted to get a group like that, only much more so. And I loved Nick Fury. The one thing I can't understand in the Avengers movies, and Nick Fury, as played by, what's the name of the actor?
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel Jackson, whom I know and who's a wonderful actor, is such a quiet guy. He just kind of walks around in that leather coat, and that's about it. When I wrote Colonel Fury, he was the toughest damn guy in the world. He yelled and shouted, and the people were afraid of him, and he took command. And he was originally in Sergeant Fury in the Howling Commandos. I loved that book, and when I stopped writing it, years later, people said, "What happened to Sergeant Fury?" So I decided to bring S.H.I.E.L.D. out and make him Colonel Fury, and he's in charge of it. And in the movies, they don't make him rough and tough enough. And I'm hoping they will, and when I get to meet whoever it is that's doing it, I'm going to suggest that they ought to toughen the guy up. I think it would be very important. Was the question, was I disappointed?
No, you...
Well,
yes.
Why am I ranting this way?
Because they like listening to you,
I tend to do that.
Hi, countless video games have been made based off of the characters that you've created, and I was just wondering if you've ever gotten a chance to play some, and if so, did you have a favorite?
So a lot of Marvel characters have been turned into video games in one form or another, and have you gotten a chance to play any of them?
I'm embarrassed to tell you this. I have never played a video game in my life. I just haven't had the time, and I don't even... Once I was there was a Hulk video game, or a game that featured him or something, and they invited me to meet the people who had done the game, and I think I was one of the characters in the game, and the guy who created it is sitting there with one of these instruments that works everything, and he gave me one. And he said, come on, Stan, I'll play you, we'll have our characters fight. And he's going like this, and the character is going crazy and jumping over my character, and I'm going like this. If I push this button, I don't know what this button does. So after a couple of minutes, I said, you know, I yield, you win. I've just never gotten around to playing those games. I'm in a few of them, though, and I'm sure I'm wonderful, but I haven't played them.
So humble. Yes, sir.
Professionally or personally, what is the most fun you have with Jack Kirby?
I think seeing his artwork. The man was so good. Every time he would send in a strip, it was such a thrill just looking at the way he drew it. Nobody could tell a story as dramatically. Jack Kirby should have been a movie director. He always knew if something had to be drawn, he always knew how to shoot it from the best possible angle that would make it look the most interesting. And I just loved it every day or every few days when his artwork would arrive and I could look at it. Other than that, being with him, he was a nice guy, but he was always smoking cigars and blowing the smoke in my face, so we didn't talk all that much.
So no road trips?
What was that?
No road trips?
Road trip?
Road trip with...
Well, we used to do a few radio interviews together, and they were fun, but no road trips. We were both too busy. He lived somewhere at the end, further out in Long Island. I lived in Long Island too, but closer to New York. Once in a while, he would bring the artwork to my house. Other times, he'd send the artwork to our office. No, we didn't take any. I didn't take any road trips really with anybody. It was all the traveling I did was always by myself. I didn't want to share all the glory.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Lee, first I'd like to thank you for being awesome. Secondly, I was wondering if you'd ever be considering doing a series on time travel in comics.
He wants to thank you for being awesome.
You're welcome.
He wants to know if you would ever consider doing a time travel type theory in the comics.
Well, I have, in the comics? No, I don't really write any more comics. I miss it, but I don't have time for it. But I have a time travel concept for a movie that I am just about finishing organizing for myself, and I'll be seeing if I can get that turned into a movie pretty soon. I did a time travel thing for Disney a few years ago. I forget what it was called. Time Jumper, it was called. And the way they did it, it didn't work out. They did it for the internet, and somehow it was in the beginning of doing those things, and it didn't get as popular as it should have. It didn't last very long. But time travel is the most interesting subject. And when you really study physics and you study Einstein's theory and so forth, if you can go fast enough, if you can pass the speed of light, it affects time in some way. And there might actually be a way. I don't know that you could go back 30 years or go ahead 100 years, but there might be ways you could affect time itself. And I've been trying, I don't have that much time to study it, but if I had more time, I'd really read up more about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can the Hulk use Thor's hammer?
The Hulk used Thor's hammer.
No. Oh, I don't think so. No. Oh, no. Thor's hammer is enchanted, you foolish person. Thor is a god. The Hulk is just a guy, a big, strong guy. It's funny, when I wanted to do the Thor book, everybody was saying to me, you've already got the Hulk and you've got, I think, Galactus. I don't remember the order of them. They said, what can you do that's even bigger? Maybe my publisher said it to me. And I figured, gee, we haven't done a god. So I figured, let's see, everybody knows the Roman gods and the Greek gods. People aren't that familiar with the Norse gods. So I decided, oh, you know, one thing that they don't do in the movie, and they don't even do in the comics anymore, when I started Thor, I made him a regular human being, a regular person who finds the hammer. And there's a thing that says, if you be worthy, you'll be able to lift it, or some corny thing like that. And for some reason, he was worthy, and he lifted it. And he was lame. He was a doctor. That's it. And he had a cane. And when he tapped the cane on the ground was when he had to become Thor. And the hammer, the cane turned into the hammer, and he turned into Thor. And when he wanted to go back to Earth as the doctor, he hit the hammer on the ground, it turned into a cane, and he became Doctor whatever name I gave him. And he had a nurse that he was in love with, but he was also in love with Sif, the goddess. And I was going to make it way later on at the end of the series that we would learn that Sif and the nurse were really the same woman. And Odin had put them there to test Thor's loyalty or something. I had such plans for that book, but after a while I stopped writing it and we never got around to it, and that's the story. That was a long story, sorry.
Well, dude. I was just given the 5-minute signal, or he was trying to high-five me. I don't know which. Let's go over here.
Hi, Stan. It's great to meet you. Thanks for everything. My question is, Amazing Spider-Man 36, the 9/11 issue, is a really touching issue, really emotional. Is there any issue or any comic you created that tugs at your heartstrings?
Any issue?
Any issues that you've created, or issues period, that really tug at your heartstrings? Emotionally important to you?
A little bit with the Silver Surfer, because I tried to, the various things I had him say, I tried to make them as philosophical as I could. So he would be like an alien commenting about the culture he found on Earth and the way the people on Earth behave. And he couldn't understand why we're so warlike and why we didn't appreciate our planet. And I threw in a lot of that stuff in the beginning when I was writing The Silver Surfer. So I think he comes closest to what you mentioned, which I've already forgotten.
Awesome. Over here.
My name is Hector Ramirez. First off, thank you, Stan, for contributing to comics the way you did. Big fan. Secondly, I would like to know, thinking back to when you first created your characters, how do you feel now about how they're represented in media?
Oh, I'm thoroughly delighted. They've become big hits, and they've made the whole world Marvel Comics conscious. So naturally, I'm excited and thrilled, and I almost can't believe it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Over here, we're going to take maybe...
The amazing thing is they're putting all that work into the movies. I have nothing to do with the movies, and I get all that credit, and I love it.
Hi, Stan. This is a reference to Japanese comics, but it's manga.
Manga!
What he was referring to was the comic called Ultimo.
Ultimo, yeah, that's right.
And you're in that comic, and I was wondering if they did a movie adaptation and they asked you to play in it, would you play in the movie?
Sure. I can't say no to anything that has to do with acting in a movie. I get it. In fact, tomorrow, no, what's tomorrow, Sunday? On Monday, I'm going to New York to shoot my cameo for the next Spider-Man movie. I have no idea what it is. They haven't told me, but I don't care. Whatever it is, I'm going to do it.
Out of all of your
characters you ever created, which one was the most difficult for you to create?
Out of all the characters you created, which one was the most difficult for you to create?
Tell you the truth, they were all about the same. I mean, once I had the idea for what I wanted to do, then it wasn't that hard to write it. Just had to think of the idea. I'm trying to think, were any ideas tougher to think of than others? Maybe the Fantastic Four, because in the beginning it was a little more complex. It took a little longer because it was the start of a new type of strip for us, and I wanted it to get my publisher's approval, so I spent a little longer on that one. But no, once I had the idea, they were all pretty easy to do.
Yes.
What was your favorite superhero that you created?
Do you have? Go ahead.
I don't really have favorites. You know, it's so tough for me to. People sometimes say, "What's your favorite book or movie?" Or I don't know. There are so many things I like, and like with the Oscar awards, I don't know how they can take one movie or one actor and say he was the best actor this year. Because what really happened was that actor got the best role to play. And there are hundreds of actors who are probably just as good, but they weren't lucky enough to land a role as good as the one who won. And the same with favorites are very difficult for me. I like the Fantastic Four for a certain reason. I like the X-Men for a reason. I like Daredevil. I like all of them. I don't really have a favorite. I don't know how to pick. Like books, I'm always asked what's my favorite book. There were hundreds of books that I've read. I've loved them all. I don't know how you can pick a favorite. I really don't. I admire people who can pick favorites. I don't know how to do that.
Is Stan your favorite?
I did not tell him to say that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this Stan Lee
I'm
Q&A.
just getting started.
Thank you, Stan.